The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM.
Welcome back to our second session of the SPED Collaborative at MTSU. This is the SPED Collaborative Summer Academy, and we have special education teachers from various places in Tennessee. We're about to have our second presentation today, and I will let Dr. Tucker do most of the introduction, but as you know, Dr. Thurman Tucker has held a number of different roles as a teacher, as an administrator, as a professor, but his focus all along and his heart is in special education. So he is joining us today, so I'd like to introduce Dr. Thurman Tucker.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. First thing, I'd like to, thank my Lord and Savior, God, for just giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank my mom, my dad, and my brothers and sisters just for always being supportive of me in my journey and, and just trying to be, the best person, individual that I can just possibly be. I want to thank Dr. Clark. I want to thank MTSU. I want to thank the Media Center. And I just want to thank everyone for your participation and your time, because there's other things that are very important in your life and you chose to be here. This is just a little information about me. I have been in several different settings, and this is strategically planned. I wanted to make sure that I have been in a rural setting, an urban setting, suburban setting, inner city. I have worked at every grade band except pre-K, kindergarten through 12. I have been an administrator, high school, middle school, but not elementary. And then as far as in the classroom as a special education teacher, I have been in inclusion, life skills, CDC. I have been a resource teacher. I have worked at alternative behavior schools. So I have a lot of background within the special ed populations from all diverse communities. I authored a book. It's called Powerful CoTeaching, and that's mainly what the gist of this presentation is. And I just want to make sure you all understand that when you're working with another individual, one of the most challenging things is being able to plan for time for you all can put something together to make sure it's beneficial for the child. All right, the presentation today is Powerful Co-Teaching with Behavior Strategies. And our learning objectives are going to be, first of all, you all are going to hear a video from an actual special education student that talks about the life of being a special ed kid. And the title of it is called Don't Limit Me. Don't treat me a certain way, whether it's good, whether it's not good, because I'm a special ed student. Give me the same opportunities that you would give any other student within your classroom. And then you all are going to do a group activity. So I think we're going to be in groups of 4s. And I want you all to share out because your expertise matters. My goal is to ensure that our special education students understand that just because they have a disability, that does not mean that they can't learn or can't function in a society. And then we're going to talk about what is co-teaching, and then I'm going to offer a couple of methods. And then I'm going to talk about some school guarantees. And when we get to the school guarantees part, this is something that you have to demand from the state of Tennessee. You have to demand from your administrators, and you have to demand from your coworkers, because that ensures that your needs as an educator is being met. And when I say educate, I'm talking about all across the field. The counselors, the teachers, and all the professionals that work within that special ed setting. And then we'll talk about behavior strengths. Now, throughout my presentations, there's always questions that people have. There's 3 burning questions, okay? So the first one is, how do we foster an academic achievement environment for special education students and try to get them at grade level when they have so many disabilities? I know you all have heard about achievement and growth, trying to close the gap between the subgroups with our special ed population, with our economically disadvantaged students. So that is one of the most important things that we have to know. And when I'm giving you all this information, think about applying it to these 3 questions. Think about how can it help you within your classroom. And then the second one, and this is, I guess, it's starting to take over. How do we manage behavior challenging students in a gen ed setting? Now, as an administrator, as a teacher, this is one thing I get from parents where their child is not the one that's causing the inappropriate behavior. Well, my child can't learn in the classroom with Dr. Tucker because he's constantly disrupting the learning. He's constantly talking. He's constantly doing this. Then I also hear from the teachers. Little Johnny is just too bad. So we offer interventions for the teacher to do. The teacher say, I did this, I did that. It's still not working. So how do me as an administrator, how do I bridge that gap when you have the teacher and the student that does not get along? But you have to have one final outcome. The outcome is you got to grow that student. You got to grow that teacher. You have to get that student to a level to as where as if they are achieving. And like I said, back to question 1. That is the hard thing, to take a special ed student. Majority of my experience comes from the middle school. We would have kids in my intervention class that were on a 3rd or 4th grade level. And just think, I'm a 7th grade special ed teacher. Now, how do I, as a person, not a teacher, not an administrator, how do I as a person work with a child and try to offer them a 7th grade standard when according to the baseline assessment, they're on a 3rd grade level? How do I get them there? That is the challenge. That's where you become a level 2 teacher, then all of a sudden now you're a level 4, level 5, because you are able to take that child. You may not get them to grade level, but you are able to show some type of growth. And then as an administrator, this is something that we have in our admin meetings all the time. Should we focus on growth or should we focus on achievement? So when you think about achievement is how many students at my school is on grade level according to the state test in ELA and math. How? So if you look at the state report card on the Tennessee.gov website, when you go in there, I think it's called success rate. You have a percentage. Some may say 30%, 40%, 50%. Now, I was in a district, when I look at their success rate or their achievement rate, it's at 20%. So what that tells me is that it's 80%, and I'm talking about SPED ed, I like to say SPED ed, and gen ed teach students together that are below grade level, 80%. And then you look at our affluent districts, and well, they percentage sits at 60%, but that's still not good, because that means that 40% of our students are below grade level. So it's up to you all. You know, y'all have to continue to lean on each other. We have to continue to believe that our voice matters when it comes to helping students. All right, I'm gonna play this video, and this is about the young lady about Don't Let Me, so y'all really pay attention.
Hi, teachers in Douglas County School District. My name is Megan Baumgars, and I'm here to help you with your kids in your classrooms with a disability or without a disability. I am going to show you how to teach your students the right way. I am a special person. When I was in school, I made a lot of friends. I was in regular classes prepared for support. I learned with other students in a regular classroom. I became a cheerleader in high school. I was the first cheerleader in the state with Down syndrome. My cheerleading team went to state, and we went on to nationals where we won our National Sportsmanship Award in Washington, D.C. Since I've been out of high school, I was a fashion model in a Global Down Syndrome Foundation fashion show, and I used to work at the Mile High Down Syndrome Association where I help them with events. I now go to the bridge program in Highlands Ranch where I'm learning how to be a public speaker. I have a lot of skills. I have a lot of dreams. What I want to say is to you, don't limit me. Don't limit me by thinking that I can't learn in your classroom. Don't limit me by thinking that I will always need someone to help me. Don't limit me by having low expectations for me. Include me in all your students in your circle of learning while you are planning for my world-class education. Think about how I have the same needs as our students. We all need life skills. We all need work skills. I need for you to teach me skills beyond reading and math. Teach me how to learn. Teach me how to act. Think about what I need to know to be able to do when I leave school. Help me learn to be independent in class. Help me learn to be independent with friends. Help me learn to be independent and safe running around our school. Teach me to be independent so I can become an independent adult. I need to work independently. I need to speak up for myself. Don't limit me by teaching me to depend on others. Teach me respect, because respect is give and take. Hold me to the same behavior, expectations as others in your classroom. Teach me how to behave and excel in your class. Don't limit me by making me class mascot. Teach me what you expect from me. Set high expectations, not impossible expectations. There is a difference, you know. You will learn a lot from me. Good teachers teach and learn with their students. I will teach you a lot about yourself. I will teach your students about people with disabilities. If you don't limit me, we will teach our school how to be an inclusive community. You, my teacher, are the person who's going to teach me power, passion, love, and independence. And I will become a powerful, passionate, loving, and independent adult. So please don't limit me. My name is Megan Baumgart. Thank you for your time today. Have a wonderful new school year.
Woo! When I watch that video, it's emotional. I mean, you have a young lady up there. She's pouring her heart out, and not only is she saying that you as a special ed teacher just teach me, you can learn a lot from me. Hold me to the same accountability that you hold her or her. Basically, what she's saying is just treat me normal, and that goes on in the mind of our special ed teachers. If you are a special ed teacher and you work in a school setting, you feel left out. When you see this, your administration come up and talk and go over data, the main thing they talk about is ELA, math, gen ed. ELA, math, gen ed. When you see the news, ELA, math, general education. So where's the love for the special education population? So how do we help an environment when the resources are not catered towards us. It's not catered towards the student that have a disability that you can't see. And I want y'all to think about this. Can see disability versus a disability that you can't see. And what I mean by that is, when a student walk in your classroom and they have augmented devices, like the previous presenter was talking about, or if they're in a wheelchair, or if they have a feeding tube, that's a visual, physical disability that you can see. Our heart naturally goes for that child, okay? And rightfully so, it should. But what about the child that walks normal, talks normal, and looks normal, have a disability, but when they come in your classroom and their disability takes over and you can't see it, that child is labeled as lazy, terrible parents, does not want to do any work. But you as a special education teacher, you know when you work with that child one-on-one, then you begin to see that this child has a disability. So we have to figure out, and I need y'all help. When you go back to your schools, everyone has to be on board. We have to figure out, how do we help these children that have the disabilities that you cannot see? Those are the ones that's being bullied, and they scared to come forward because of the so-called snitching code. So what they do is they internalize it. They won't come to administration. They won't come to the teacher. They won't go to their parents, and all of a sudden, they snap. Then all of a sudden, we have these emotional, we have those mental illnesses, but these are the students that have the disabilities that we cannot see. So we got to be able to embrace it, and we got to be able to train our administrators. And don't be scared to go to your administrator and teach them about special education. We got to be able to train our gen ed teachers about our students with disabilities that you can't see. All right, we're going to do a group activity, and I want you all to start looking at those questions and start formulating them in your mind. And we all going to work together, guys. Remember, we are trying to help our special education population. So you all can start brainstorming about the question. And remember, people online, make sure you are working on these questions as well. All right. So, the first question. So make sure you have your reporter ready to share out. Since we have 4 groups, everyone is going to share out for about a minute or so. Question 1. Why should students with disabilities be included in a general education setting? We'll start with group 4.
Well, one of the things we came up with, they're gen ed students first.
Okay. Anything y'all would like to add to it because they gen ed students first?
We were reflecting on that amazing video and how impactful that was, and just that phrase, "don't limit me." We should have the same expectations and provide full access and accommodate, modify if needed, so that everybody has the same access to the knowledge and the social aspects of a general education.
Okay. All right. And then what are the advantages of a special ed student that have a BIP or a behavior intervention plan included in the gen ed setting?
Students learn from other students, and we mentioned peer-to-peer modeling as well as acceptance.
Okay. Peer modeling. Okay. Let's go here to group 2, I'm sorry. What did you come up with your answer for number 1?
So for the first one, we put creates community, sets them up for real life, builds social skills. They get to see what would be considered a role model, increased expectations in learning, as well as people without the disabilities. That promotes acceptance and empathy, and it practices acceptance and empathy.
Oh, I like that. Okay. All right. What about question number 2?
Question number 2, appropriate models of behavior. It builds social skills, interacts with different perspectives. So we had elaborated on that they're not in a room with and
Okay.
only seeing the they see the differences too.
Wow, okay.
And then the teacher also learns new strategies to address the behavior and allows them to accommodate for each child.
Wow, I love it. Thank you, thank you. All right, group one.
We, for question number 1, talked about peer relationships and how being with the gen ed students that they're learning general education standards.
Yes, ma'am.
And also that it's just the right thing to do.
Yes, yes.
That and it builds their communication and knowledge.
Yes, yes.
For the second question, we did model behavior, peer relationships, and then it teaches them how to be successful not only at school but in post-education out in
Yes.
the real world.
Okay. Group 4.
We've got most of what the others said. I think the only thing we had different was the common language
Okay.
and in socialization,
So, okay.
because the rest of them are very similar.
First one, very simple. Yes.
And on the second one, we did exposures to triggers was the only thing we had different, just because when you've got a behavior student, when they're outside the classroom, some of the things that they deal with in the classroom are going to be the same thing they deal with in life.
Okay.
And learning to deal with it in a smaller environment makes them better equipped.
Yes. All right. Any comments from our viewers online?
Yes, we've got comments. So, 1, students with disabilities should be included in general ed classrooms because they deserve to have equitable access to high quality tier 1 instruction.
Absolutely.
A comment from White County, students are gen ed students first.
Wow, I heard that a
They
lot.
have the right to be educated in the least restrictive environment with access to the general ed curriculum. Another comment, SWD will benefit from peer modeling for appropriate behaviors. Another comment, least restrictive environment and grade level. Another comment, content exposure, peer interactions, grade level behavior expectations, peer modeling. Another comment, students in the gen ed setting can be a positive role model for students with a behavior plan. Another comment, having SPED students in the gen ed classroom helps all students in the classroom learn more than what we see educationally. Another comment, because all students are tier 1 students first, and peer modeling is evidence-based best practice, and that's from Clarksville, Montgomery County School System. Got a comment coming from DeKalb County. High school SPED reading teacher, but have done all levels and SPED areas in the past. Students with a disability shouldn't be limited to learning opportunities. They deserve high expectations. And the last comment, the advantages of using a behavior intervention plan are tips on preventing problematic behavior. It helps to teach appropriate behaviors. Thank you, listeners, and thank you to the people in the room.
Now we finna get into co-teaching. Ask yourself, what is co-teaching? Just think about it. There's no right or wrong answer. You all are planning, you all are exchanging ideas, you're talking about things that you think is co-teaching. Another person may have another view. My definition, this is not totally mine. I basically summarize a lot of different definitions. It involves 2 or more educators sharing instructional responsibilities for students primarily in a single classroom for differentiated content delivery. All right, keys to successful co-teaching. The first thing is inclusive IEP meetings. Now, the word inclusive, when I think about an IEP meeting, I think about special ed teacher, I think about gen ed teacher, parent, administrator, any other professional that's involved with that child's IEP. In reality, everyone is so busy, I have also seen IEP meetings where it's just the special ed teacher, the parent, there's no gen ed teacher, there's no admin, there's a sheet that at the end of the meeting, we run around and find that person to get them to sign it. Now, it is what it is, but that violates the law, and you all know that. So we got to make sure when you have your IEP meetings, you got to have a gen ed teacher present. You yourself, the case manager or the special education teacher or the speech or whatever caseload that child is on, you have to be there. Administration, whoever they have as the designee to be at the IEP meetings, they have to be there. The parent have their right to attend or not to attend, but it's strongly encouraged that they are at the meeting. A lot of times I have seen SPED meetings as an administrator where the child may have a speech service and the speech person is not there to offer their input. So the special ed teacher will read their goals or their present level. So just make sure that if you can, okay, treat every IEP meeting like the state is in there watching you. You have to. Every single IEP meeting. The minute you're sitting in an IEP meeting and it's just you and the student, you are doing a disservice to not only that student, but the entire special education population across the world. You are doing a disservice when you're sitting in that IEP meeting and you don't have all the team members there. I'm just telling y'all reality, but I get it. I understand the time constraints to where as if the administrators are so busy, they dealing with emergencies, they dealing with behavior. They got people coming in from the central office. The gen ed teacher, she have or he has PLC meetings. They have so much going on that it's hard. That's why, by law, it's required a 10-day notice before you get that meeting started. But I would prefer, try to do it 30 days in advance as far as scheduling the date. That way you can make sure everyone is there. Abide by your IEP at a glances and your BIPs, your behavior intervention plans. Too many times, I'm gonna take y'all in a role as a special ed teacher, then I'm gonna go to administration. Too many times when a teacher can't attend the IEP meeting, a general ed teacher or someone that worked with that child within the school, we have to take them what is called an IEP at a glance. What an IEP at a glance in most districts is a snapshot of that child's IEP. It's gonna have their goals on there, their accommodations, and just a little bit more information as far as their grade level and who their case manager is. Make sure you're not just taking the IEP at a glance. Hey, can you sign here? Can you sign here? When you take that IEP at a glance to this teacher, you just say, okay, you need to ask her to sign, but is there a time that I can meet with you so I can clearly go over the IEP at a glance? You have to do that. Now, I'm finna switch to administrator role. Why it's important to do that. You all heard of the lovely word called due process. Okay. There's levels to it. There's levels to it. First of all, you have a mini due process with you, the administrator, and maybe the parent about the child accommodations or modifications not being implemented with fidelity. That's the first level. Parent, no, I don't agree with that. So now the second level becomes, now we're going to the district. So the district is going to have some type of meeting to where as if try to figure out whether the child IEP was implemented. So right now you're still safe. But here's the problem. When it surpasses the district, and then it starts going into the court of law. Now, one of the first things the mediator or the judge is going to ask the teacher, and you under oath, is, did you abide by that child's IEP? I have sat in due processes where teachers have stated during the actual process that they did not even know the child had an IEP. Okay, so at that moment, the mediator, the judge, strictly grants it to the parent and they move on. Send this child back to school and put together a plan to make sure. So it's very important that you understand that. Okay, now let's talk about the BIP, the behavior intervention plan. Manifestations. Okay, so now I have a child that has a disability, a behavior disability, an emotional disturbed disability. So that means that he's protected by the state when his behavior is out of control. So now me as an administrator, I'm trying to suspend a special ed child for picking up a chair and throwing it at another student, okay? And you would think as a teacher and as a parent and as a stakeholder that if a child picks up a chair and throw it at another child, he got to go or she got to go. But if that child has a BIP, and it's going to go through the same process. So now we're sitting in the manifestation. So now they're saying, okay, they go over to everything, they go over the rights, and they say, did this disability occur because of the child's disability or this behavior? I'm sorry. And the answer is yes. So guess what? As an administrator, I can't suspend that child. I got to send that child back to class. You as a teacher, you coming to me saying, Dr. Tucker, there's no way I'm allowing this child back in my class. He's a safe hazard. I have parents calling about him. So how as an administrator, and this is where your administrators are faced with a tough decision because they are held accountable by federal laws. So just make sure that you guys understand the IEP at a glance and the BIPs. Administrators, make sure at the beginning of the school year that you notify your administrators to make sure they give you all time to plan with your co-teachers or whoever you're working with as far as the special ed setting. Then grouping. I know you all are saying that, well, I can't create the master schedule. You can't, but you can, okay? You can sit down with your administrators or who's ever in charge of creating the master schedule and say, okay, I don't work well with that teacher, okay? I need to work with this teacher. Is it possible that I can work with this teacher? Because the bottom line is, back to that question number 3, we're trying to grow kids and we're trying to get them to that achievement level. So make sure you pre-plan that out as well. And then students, make sure you don't have students in the same classroom that have behaviors that are very challenging. Because when I was in middle school as a special ed teacher, the person that creates the master schedule had put 3 of the most challenging kids in the same classroom, and it was a nightmare for the teacher. But what ended up happening is us as the teachers, we are so afraid of our administrators, we're so afraid to make suggestions and say. So only thing the administrator, I hate to say it, but they just looking at a number. Student 1, student 2, okay, I can put 25 in this class, I can put 23 in this class, I can put 27. That's how they, so you got to take ownership in what you are doing, because if not, you're going to be sitting in the classroom, and I don't care how well you know your content. If you can't manage, you can attest to this, if you can't manage that classroom with the behavior, you won't even get a chance to teach. You could be the best math teacher, best English teacher in the world, the best social studies, science, gym teacher, whatever, you have it. If you can't manage little Johnny and little Susie or little Shamika and little Shanika, you can't do nothing. Because you're going to be constantly calling, Dr. Clark, I need you to come down to the classroom. I need this, this, and that. So just make sure that you are part of the schedule building. Tell your administrators that you need to be in there when they're doing the master schedule. And then you all know building relationships is important. We got to build relationships. We can't expect a child to work for us. I'm talking about the ones that have the challenging behavior, that have the challenges within the classroom, to work for us if we don't build that relationship with them. So now we're going to get to powerful co-teaching methods. As a special ed teacher, I'd like to give you all a visual, a description, and then also my experience. So the 3 teaching strategies I'm going to talk about: 1 teach, 1 assist, station teaching, which is like blended learning, and 1 teach, 1 observe. And I'm going to try to let you all know when to apply these situations. Now, there are several co-teaching methods, but these are the ones that I use as a special ed teacher within an inclusion setting. All right, one teach, one assist. Now, the lady in the black dress, she's the gen ed teacher. And then the young lady here with the glasses, she's the special education teacher. Now, this is the one that I utilize the most. And here's why. When I go into a math classroom with a math general ed teacher, I, Dr. Tucker, as a special education teacher, I am not the expert within that content. And I have to accept that role. One thing you're going to get from the kids, I got it all my life, you are not even a real teacher. You are a EA, which is okay. So what I said to myself, you know, of course my pride, me being who I am, I'm like, okay, do I challenge little Ferranda or do I just hear what he is saying? So the way I prove my point to little Ferranda is through my work ethic, through building that relationship with him to ensure that he understands that I'm here to help him. I'm not here just to come in and stand over you to make sure that you are behaving. I'm here to break down an algebraic expression. I'm here to teach you how to use exponents, but at the same time, I'm going to use some of my strategies to help you be successful. So one teach, one assist, one teacher delivers the content, while the other educator circulates the classroom, providing differentiated instruction and assisting students as needed. All right, station teaching. Now this, to me, can be the one that you get the most bang for your buck. Because when you think about station teaching, you think about the elementary setting. But this is also helpful at the middle grades as well as the high schools, because you give your students a chance to move around within the classroom. No one wants to sit. Now, as an administrator and as a teacher, so I'm finna go into my administration role when I'm doing an observation. So when I come in and do the team observation, I do the rubric. Kid you not, guys, a teacher, gen ed teacher or SPED teacher who's ever leading the class, say for example, you have a 50-minute block. The teacher will stand up there for 50 minutes. I'm talking about 50 minutes. I'm talking about she going over the standards or he going over the standards. They are in their own world and they know their content. Kids are head on the desk. They beaten. There's no accountability for that teacher to ensure that her students are engaged other than just make sure you cover the state standards. Now, here's the second part to that. The special ed teacher has her nerves or his nerves to be sitting in a corner on their cell phone. So me as an administrator, I'm coming in, and I kid you not, this happens. It happened to me when I was in the classroom. I come in with my computer getting ready to observe, and I look over there, and I don't say anything because I don't want to try to embarrass her or him in front of the students. I'm walking, find me a seated area. I apologize. So I sit down, and the first thing I'm looking for is the standards. Okay, so 80% of the time, the teacher have the standards written on the board word for word. Now, come on now, guys. We know that child is not going to internalize that standard word for word. We understand what it is. So you got to break it down. If you think about the team rubric, it talks about being relevant to the child. So if you take a standard and copy and paste off the state website and then do some type of creative and put it up on your board word for word, that child is lost. Okay, said all that to say this. Back to station teaching. You have 3 different areas. You have a student table, a computer lab, and you have a guidance corner. Now, say for example, you have a 50-minute block. You can have students working at the student table for 15 minutes. Then once they finish that, they can go to the computer lab for 15 minutes, and then they can come over here to the guidance corner. Now, the guidance corner, what I used to utilize this for is the social, emotional, and the positive reinforcement builder. The positive reinforcement has to tie back into whatever standard or lesson you are teaching. Say, for example, at the student table, you want the kids to reach 75 to 80%. Once they get to the computer lab, you want them to probably reach that same percentage. Now, once they come over here to guidance corner, you should have something set up in place to where this teacher or support staff know their scores. Okay, so little Johnny gets over there and he did not reach the score, he's gonna have a tantrum because he don't get to participate in a positive reinforcement. So you gotta have something in your toolbox to be able to ensure that you can keep him or her under control. So the main thing this is more like where the child is just not sitting doing one thing. You're trying to create differentiated instruction. All right, then the last one is one teach, one observe. The gen ed teacher is the young man standing in the front, and then the special ed or the support staff is the young lady in the back. Now, this can be utilized when you have children that have those behaviors. Okay, school-wide positive behavior system. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but that's where it starts at. You have a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then up under that, some people have a RTIB, which is response to intervention for behavior. So a child, tier 1, not the academic tier 1, but the behavior tier 1. Everyone receives the tier 1. Everyone gets to go to the gym. Everyone gets to go outside in the beginning. Then once a child continues to exhibit behaviors, then you go to the tier 2, tier 3, just try to get that child some more interventions. Now, this is an important strategy because the teacher that is observing, she can do the data collection. Now, let's think about this. We talked about BIPs earlier, but there's a process before a child gets to a BIP. They have to go through the tier structure, which is what we just talked about, and then they have to go through an FBA, functional behavior assessment, because we're trying to figure out what is the behavior that is triggering this behavior and what type of consequence will we have for it. So when you think about an FBA, you think about the antecedent, which is the trigger, you think about the behavior, and then you think about the consequence. Now, once a child has went through an FBA and continues to exhibit those behaviors, then it becomes into a BIP. So this strategy is more important when you have a child that you are taking data on, but it has to be pre-planned, and then you all can meet afterwards. Okay, our school will guarantee. Your school have to guarantee these things in order for your school to be successful. First one, staff and students are safe. And I'm trying to give you all a round view of what it takes to help our children with special needs reach growth and achievement. It takes all of this. Staff and students must be held accountable for academics and behavior. Staff and students' basic needs must be met. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this from the heart. It's not all about the students. It's about the teachers as well. The teachers have to feel appreciated. Staff and students are loved and cared for. Students and staff know that the school is the real world. What do you mean by staff and students are the real world? I mean, school is the real world. I want y'all to think about this and think about how many times you have told your students this. I have did it. Everyone that I have been a part of in the educational setting have done this. You're sitting with a child that's in the 6th through 9th grade or maybe 4th through 9th grade, and you tell that child, when you get in the real world, you are not going to be able to do this. When you get in the real world, you are not going to be able to do that. When you get in the real world, so what that child internalized, now I had to figure this out. So what you're telling me, Dr. Tucker, is that this math problem right now is not the real world? Is that what you're telling me? So in that child brain, why should I take it serious? Because you as an educator, as a professional in the building, you're telling me that this is not the real world. What we have to change our minds and start saying is when you become whatever the real world you all are referring to, when you become 18, 19, or when you get ready to go to college, or when you get a job, this is what you're going to need. But when we sit there and say the real world to a 10, 11-year-old child, why should I take school serious? My teacher just told me that this is not the real world. I mean, just think about it. I had to get there. Then the next part is school matters. How many times do us as educators walk in the building at 7 o'clock, and the first thing we say, I can't wait till 3 o'clock. Can't wait. And little DeAndre sitting right here, he hears that. And just think, he been hearing that since the kindergarten. And now he's in the 8th grade. I can't wait till 3 o'clock. It's Monday. Oh my Lord. Jesus, help me. What? Say it again. Friday can't come quick enough. And just think, our children are taught that since kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And we wonder why our kids don't want to be at school, because us as the role models in the building, we sitting there telling them that we don't want to be here. I walk past teachers' doors and they got signs that say, God, please give me a snow day. I mean, we got to get to the point, gals. We got to get to the point to where as if we are training their brains to want to be at school. They got to love to be at school. I'm guilty of it. I'm hollering across the hallway, yeah, it's Friday, let's get it. I'm finna go shake, you know what I'm saying? And the kids, just think about that. All right, now, the next part, staff and students' trauma will be handled with care. That's very important, because a lot of times we get kids in our classrooms that have experienced trauma the night before, whether they witness a fire at their house, domestic dispute, someone being shot, someone being killed, or a mom and dad arguing. And so when they come to class the next day, we still have to hold them accountable for their academics and behavior. And we don't even know, because there's so many confidentiality laws to where as if I can't tell you as a teacher that this student went through this last night. So you all have to be advocates. When you go back to your schools, tell them to put something in place. I don't need to know what happened to the student last night. I just need to be aware that that child went through some type of trauma so I can know how to better serve him or her and handle them with care. So these are like, the schools have to guarantee this in order for that child to get to that achievement and that growth, and also in order for us as the educators. All right, behavior teaching strategies. I'm not going to go in detail in these, but I just want you all to kind of look at them, and I'm going to hit on maybe 3 or 4 of them that's very important. Okay, the first row is more like a level 1, things that you would do with a child. Make sure that you contact the parent. Make sure your routines and you go over your expectations. If that child continue to exhibit those behaviors, then you have to make sure that the classroom is set up for that child to be successful. Easy access to materials. Materials are organized and stored in the same place each day. And then differentiate instruction. We talk about that with the blended learning. And then the second row, SIF. I know you all probably haven't heard of that. Simultaneous instant feedback with positive prompting. What is that? That looks like, I don't know if we have any math minds in here, but I want y'all to think about an equation. 2x plus 5 equal 12. So you're trying to get a 2x plus 5 equal 12. So you're trying to get a special ed child to solve that problem. So what you may have to do is figure out, what do we have to get rid of first? 2x plus 5 equal 12. First thing we're trying to do is we're trying to solve for the variable. So my math teachers in here help me out. So if I got 2x plus 5, first thing I want to do is get rid of the 5. Okay, so I'm going to change that plus to a negative. Now, the math terminology would be inverse operation, but something that they can relate to would be the opposite. What is the opposite of plus 5? Minus 5. Okay, I'm breaking it down, and I'm giving him or her feedback, and I'm prompting them towards the answer. Some people may walk by and say, well, Dr. You're just giving the child an answer. No, I'm not. I'm breaking it down. So now I got my 2x plus 5 and done my minus 5. Whatever I do on one side of the equal sign, I do what? To the other. Okay, so now I got my plus 5 and my minus 5. That's going to cancel me out. So then when I go over 2x equal, and then whatever that minus 5 was. So just make sure that when you're working with students that have challenges academically, that you're able to prompt them towards the right solution. Because if not, you're going to give them the problem, and they're just going to sit there and look at you. So you got to be creative with that. And then another one is the last one is the 30 by 10. Okay, you got the child with chronic behaviors that you have not figured out how to slow down, or you have not figured out how to intervene. 30 by 10 is 30 seconds, 10 days in a row. Shamika comes into the classroom for 30 seconds. I'm gonna speak with her about non-academic stuff. Non-academic stuff. Now these are our children with those challenging behaviors before it gets to that FBA status. Oh, Shamika, how you doing today? Whatever. Okay, that's fine. That's day one. Only thing I asked her was how she doing. She didn't speak to me. She kind of flipped me off. She come in the next day, she have on some shoes. Oh, I really love your shoes. Your shoes are nice. That's the second day. And then the third day, you just continue to find something. Then by the time you get to the 8th day, Shamika finally said, thank you. And that's an accomplishment. So if you take a child and you build that relationship outside of the academic part of it, because the goal is to get them to the growth and achievement of the academic side. But we got to tap into the social emotional part. And you all have heard a lot about that. And I got a little homework for you all. Now, this is an exit ticket. So what I want you to do is take about 2 minutes and answer those 5 questions, and then we'll be getting ready to head out.
So just some comments from viewers from Madison County Schools talking about co-teaching, 2 or more professionals planning and implementing instruction to a group of students in the same classroom. And another definition of co-teaching, again, this is comments from the full presentation, all members being on the same team to help all students meet goals and exchange ideas. Yes. And another comment from a viewer is, co-teaching is having conversations with your gen ed teacher to discuss how you both are going to present the state standard to everyone in the classroom. Both teachers discuss goals and expectations. And one person says where they teach is important to seek out assistance with other teachers to get other ideas. And a last comment, collaboration among teachers that work to support learning goals in the best possible manner. Those are general statements related to co-teaching.
Thank you all so much online. To recap what we did, we talked about 1 teach, 1 assist. We talked about station teaching, which is the blended learning, which is very good for differentiated instruction. We also talked about the 1 teach, 1 observe, to where as if you're taking some type of behavior data. And then also the school guarantees. Make sure your school have those things in place because it's going to help you and your students be successful. And then we also went over the behavior strategies. And there's my contact information. Dr. Clark, I'm ready for the Q&A.
Do you have any particular ideas for working with English learners who either have an IEP or who may need an IEP?
Well, the best advice I can tell you or suggest to you when you're dealing with English language learners is whoever the lead in your building over the ELL population, meet with them and see what type of information or resources they can offer you because they are the experts in that area. Now, when I relate that back to special education, one of the problems or challenges that we are going through is trying to figure out, does this EL student have a learning disability or is it because of their native language that they can't grasp the work? So that's something I would speak with your ELL person within your building.
Are there any questions in the room?
What would someone do, what would let's say a special education teacher do if the general education teacher disrespects you in front of the kids? In front of the kids, and how to save face and basically, still have the respect of the kids after that. What would be your suggestion?
Well, the first thing you have to think about in any situation when you are being disrespected is what's on the line. What is my consequence if I respond in this way? Can I lose my job? Can I lose my license? So you have to be the bigger role And I know sometimes it can be demoralizing to have that role to where as if you take, I don't want to call it abuse, but you take the filthy language. Now, my advice to you is you got to cover that on the front end. So remember I talked about when you are being grouped with a co-teacher, make sure that you get with your administrator, and because you know that if you've been in a building for a year or longer, you know which teachers you would like to work with and which teachers you would not like to work with. But I know sometimes you can't control it. So if you are with that teacher, you have to meet with that teacher. Y'all have to plan. You have to lay down your law. You have to say, these are my non-negotiables, not in a mean way, a very professional way. What are your feedback or suggestions? Because we need to ultimately work together so we can help our students achieve and grow. I don't know if I answered it, but I would make sure on the front end, okay, do not disrespect me in front of the other kids. That way the gen ed teacher can say, okay, so what is disrespect to you by me doing what? Because sometimes the gen ed teachers, guys, we got to understand, as a general education teacher, they got some stuff on their plate. I mean, you're talking about 30 kids for 5 periods, that's 150 kids. So they up there just like, 30 come on in. So just make sure, it may not be intentional all the time. Sometimes it is, but just make sure that you meet with them on the front end. Yeah. All right, any other questions?
Let me add to your response, Dr. Tucker.
Yes, ma'am.
Please go to our website. We had a session on July 7th that talked about strategies for working with colleagues. And there were some good suggestions because we almost have to incorporate principles of adult learning when we work with each other. And we had an excellent session that you can access on our website and view it that may help you work through those difficult situations proactively.
At the beginning of the session, you talked about that master schedule. I happen to be in a building where all of the SPED students are put in one teacher's classroom.
Wow.
I know.
At the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And, my administration's justification for that is it's easier on the planning, having our IEP meetings, that everybody's and that one teacher, and it creates horrible situations in that gen ed teacher's class that I have to push into. So, I guess my question is, and we fuss about it, the resource teachers. We have for years. I've been at this school now for 7 years, and it's consistently been that way, and it's so overwhelming for the students as well as the gen ed teacher to have 5 SPED students in her classroom. So it's, I'm just bringing it to the forefront that, I don't know what administrators are thinking or who would this really truly benefits, because I can see it benefiting no one, not
Absolutely.
even the students,
I agree with you.
not the teachers. And so, I struggle with it, and I don't have an answer. What would you suggest?
Whew, now that's a common theme across schools and a lot of concerns that teachers have. Now, sometimes the situation is unavoidable, sometimes, but I say this as a teacher and as an administrator. When you are talking to your administrator about a concern that impacts the achievement and the growth, you always got to relate back to their language that they understand. They don't understand probably the way you saying. You got to say, okay, achievement and growth. Our special education students have a better chance of demonstrating growth than our non-special ed students. And growth look good on your report card. Okay, now, so if your administrator still is not hearing what it is that you are saying, then you have to go to the district. You're not going behind their back. You're being up front. Because the bottom line is we got to help these children. And so if you're talking to your administrator and you're saying, from my experience in the classroom as one of your special education experts in this field, this is not working. This is not doing justice to the children that have an IEP or the children that do not have an IEP. You have to try to explain to them. You have to get your colleagues that believe the same thing you believe. Y'all have to come as a front to the administrator and let them know what it is that y'all seeking. And then if they continue, then you got to go to the district. Now, and then if the district continues and you letting your administrator know that if y'all don't do anything about this, I'm going to talk to the district. And I know it's easier said than done, because now you're thinking about your job, you're thinking about your kids, you think about your house mortgage, you think about your car payment, you think about the gas prices. I get it. But something has to be done or you're going to be sitting in that classroom in misery, one way or the other. So you got to say, okay, I'm letting you know, administrator, that I'm going to talk to the lead person, special ed at the district. You go to the district, they don't help you, let the district know, I'm going to talk to the state. It's just that simple. And those are not throwing each other on the bus. Those are just strategies to improve the achievement and growth. Best practice, I love it. You got to stand up for what you believe in. If not, our kids are going to continue to suffer. And I'm with you, like, I had that situation before. I had, out of 24 kids, we had 12 special ed students in the classroom. I was like, there's no way. And all of them had a learning disability. Now, sometimes they can get away with it because what they'll say is, say, for example, if it's a ELA class, they may say, well, this, even though you got 12 special ed students in here, all of them don't have an ELA disability, so we can get away with it that way. But at the end of the day, whether it's ELA or math disability or deficit, that child has a learning disability. And you all know with math these days, you got to be able to read, you got to be able to comprehend. Like the previous presenter was talking about, comprehension is so important. But you got to go through your chain of commands, and you can't be scared. We got to stand up for our profession, because if not, it's going to continue. Teachers are going to continue to leave the profession, and we are going to continue to be overburdened. We got to stand up, but do it respectfully. And then I get that you got mortgage, you got, things of that nature, but you got to stand up for yourself. It's either stand up for yourself or continue to work in misery till you get to the point to where you snap. And then when you snap, that's when the principal is going to he's going to whoop you with policies. He's going to say, okay, you violate this, you violate that, I have the right to not renew your contract. But long if they telling you that I'm not renewing your contract because you came in here and stood up for your children, that's a legal issue, and you'll win 100% of the time. But I know, easier said than done. So, but that's a great point, man. It's tough. It is. All right. Any more questions for anyone online?
Comments wrapping it up. Thank you for the wonderful session. The information and resources provided are so helpful. Thank you, Dr. Tucker. All caps. Best PD this year. Great way to start off the school year.
Oh.
And another comment, Dr. Tucker's explanations are phenomenal. It really makes you think about, everybody, let's listen to this, really makes you think about how you present yourself to your students. I mean, I would say he's got an energy that kind of captures our attention, right? And so it helps us think about how we present that kind of energy to our students. And the last comment by 3 different people, the same one, is this. Is Dr. Tucker available to speak at school systems?
Yes, absolutely.
I would love to recommend him to our SPED supervisor and curriculum supervisors for professional development.
Yes.
So would that be your contact information on the final screen? Yes,
just tell them to email me and I'll be there. Lord's willing, I'll be there.
Well, those are all the comments and questions at this time. But Dr. Tucker, anything else you want to say to wrap it up?
I just want to tell you all that I appreciate you and your voice matters. Make sure you go back and help those children and don't get to the point to where as if it's just all about the children. It's about yourself as the teacher as well. Because if you can't, I guess, get across to that child because you are in a messed up place, and then you can't benefit the child. So make sure you take care of yourself and you love on your family, and you just, and those that did not get a book online or in line, just contact me and I will get it out to you. All right, thank you all so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker.